You're listening to Thunderquack Podcast Network. This is the Thunderquack Podcast, the official podcast of Thunderquack Podcast Network, where anything can happen. So strap yourselves in and hold on to your butts. It's Thunderquack time!
Hello and welcome back to the Thunderquack Podcast, the official podcast of thunderquack.com, which you can get early every Tuesday over at patreon.com/thunderquack, or you can wait and get it late every Friday on podcast services across the galaxy. I am one of your hosts, Michael Cohen.
And I'm your other host, Amanda Conkin.
It's hot.
Oh, everywhere. It's hot everywhere,
Yeah.
I feel like right now. Like, I've been seeing a lot of stuff that's coming up from America saying that it's really hot, and then I just came back to Vancouver, and I decidedly do not have air conditioning here, and it is upsetting. Like, last night was real hard to sleep, and that's the first time that, because I have been sequestered at my parents' house for a very long time, and in a cool basement, and then they also have air conditioning, so it's been a brutal 24 hours, that's to say the least. But
Air conditioning that you don't have to pay for.
I know,
which is even better.
It's so nice. Air conditioning you don't have to pay for. They also have like a fresh garden. It's gonna be a rough last little bit of summer, but I'm pleased to be back. It is nice, but it's.
I mean, in Vancouver, I think that this was the peak. I think that this was our summer heat wave.
Yeah.
And then maybe we might get another like high 20s in September, because we tend to get like that second or third week of September. We get that.
Sometimes
little,
it gets
like,
a little hot again, yeah.
We get that little return of summer, but
this is all it is. It's just a couple days that it gets hot,
yeah.
and then
it's and in Vancouver we're being real wusses about it because it's like 30 degrees, right? Like, come on,
yeah,
it's not. That
that's
bad.
true. I was back in the Okanagan; it was like 40 at some points in time, which I don't understand what that is. I'm going to Google it right now for Fahrenheit. What is 30? I know this because our hot tub is because we do Fahrenheit and Celsius in hot tubs. That's like the only thing that Canadians use Fahrenheit for, which I think is really interesting. I feel like there's maybe one other thing.
30 is like approaching the 90s, I think.
Yeah, but 40 like is like 100 in a hot tub.
Yeah.
Which is, and I guess so a hot tub. I was going to say hot tub flavor. Hot tub flavor is
optimal hot tub flavor.
Optimal hot tub flavor is like 100 and 102, 104.
I mean, like
106.
When you think about what a hot tub is actually doing, you are just making person soup. That's
basically.
You're making person broth, and just drop the people in, and whatever flavor you're gonna get from those people, that's what you're cooking in there. That's why we put lots of chemicals in it, because it is just
that is 100. It's 40 degrees Celsius is about 104.
Okay, yeah.
So it's like I don't know. It's like exponential. It's just so bizarre how American temperatures work.
How any of their units of measure work.
Yeah. So, but 30. What's that? It's high 80s, 86, 86ish. I don't know. Again, I don't know what that means. 100 degrees though sounds insane. But that's, I guess, because that's boiling water. So like that's like, what is how do Americans, like, that just seems like really standard that 100 is boiling and 0 is freezing. Like, is that how do Americans measure their water boiling in Celsius? I just have or do you boil water at, and then you have whatever Fahrenheit it is. I don't even know what
I read a
temperature
tweet the other
Fahrenheit
day that a lot of Americans don't even own kettles, and they boil their water for tea in the microwave.
I read that too, and that cannot be true.
It's absurd.
Speaking of conspiracy theories on the internet
it's absurd. Conspiracy theories is referencing the uncut version of this episode.
But that can't be true. A kettle costs like $10. Like, who doesn't
and is
have
way
a
more
kettle?
efficient and will boil water for you way faster than. But maybe people aren't actually boiling their water or getting it to the appropriate temperature for their tea. Because
how do you make tea without boiled water?
In this household, We boil our water to the appropriate. I don't even drink the tea. I just make the tea. But I take it very seriously because, man, this sucks. David's Tea has closed down all but one location in British Columbia. Did you know that?
I have, but they are remaining open online. So I've been buying massive amounts of tea online.
Okay.
So they're becoming an online store. Yeah, I was real upset. I found out about it.
Goodness.
I found out about it last time I came back to Vancouver to go to David's Teas. I walked by David's Teas. It was closed, and I almost had a hissy fit. And then I went online, and they said that they're just closing all of their brick and mortar stores, but that they'll remain an online outlet. So I bought a butt ton of tea, especially their fruity they have a lot of mocktail teas, so I got a bunch of mocktail teas as well. But yeah,
do I want 10% off of my purchase? Of course I do. I'm going to sign up for their mailing list.
There you go. Yeah,
David's Tea is a very Canadian thing, I think.
Is it really?
Yeah, I don't think it's in the States. But yeah, I on all of their tea, on all of their loose leaf tea that you buy, it has the appropriate temperature to steep it at, and so our kettle, it has a bunch of settings, so I always do it at the one that's the closest.
I will say that I don't know if I've ever had an example of this before on the podcast, but there is something that I'm jealous of that Mike and Crystal have that I do not, and that is a precise boiler temperature on their tea kettle. It's a beautiful kettle, and every time I come over, I do. I'm gross. Because I have no concept of this. I always just hit the highest setting, and then I immediately am like, Amanda, you plebe, use the proper tea settings. You have the option. So you have a real fantastic kettle. I will say it's great, and it actually would match. I've been buying some stainless steel stuff to go on my I have a little coffee and wine bar that's a desk that went to gross misuse for years that I never used it, so I turned it into a coffee and wine bar. But I just bought I have a stainless steel coffee pot I just bought, and I have a stainless steel toaster I just bought. So your kettle would, if I feel next time you downsize, because I tend to get a lot of Mike and Crystal's hand-me-downs when they become more adultier adults than I do. So
it's when you live in our backyard,
I'm very excited.
That process will be so much easier, because it won't be how are we going to get this to your house? It'll just be okay, pick up that end and we'll bring it over. Crystal and I were once again talking about that the other day. I
have been chatting a little bit, because I was back at home where all my friends have own houses, because it's the Okanagan and they cost a pittance of what they are out here, and then I'm going, man, you guys, the prices are lowering, and I'm like, you guys could actually get a place where there could be a townhouse or a laneway house for me. So anyways, the point of this conversation was that tea has to be boiled at a specific temperature, and I don't understand how you would do that in a microwave.
You can't do that in a microwave. You can't do that in a microwave.
Sense.
Also,
but is this a Canadian? Is there there's some times where I'm kind of we're much more of a British colony than America, and I feel perhaps tea is one of those things. That there's a pretty equal divide in Canada between tea drinkers and coffee drinkers, and I don't think that same discrepancy is in the States.
That the majority of people in the U.S., particularly in the southern states, are going to be drinking their tea in sweet tea fashion, right? They're going to drink it as iced tea.
And it's it's not iced tea.
It's different from what we do.
And it's barely sweet. It is cold tea. That is what it is. I have such a problem with American cold tea.
I saw a recipe online, and I was like, actually, I think I might try that.
I mean, if you add a butt ton of sugar to it, I feel it
required it looked like half a bag of sugar.
But it's at that point, just buy a brisk. Just drink the Nest tea. Although, okay, I do have to say that it is again, I don't know if I've ever talked about her on the podcast, but my alter ego who in a bunch of different life choices decided to settle in Georgia and just drinks sweet peach tea. And it's a thing where I just have a different, but I have ordered this in the States so many times because iced tea is one of my favorites, and I order it in the States, and it's just gross. But it's because I think it's I haven't had real, I feel if somebody made me sweet tea, that it would be
sweet tea is different from iced tea. If you order an iced tea in the States, you're gonna get cold tea.
Yeah.
If you want what we call iced tea in Canada, you want to order a sweet tea. But yeah, anyways.
Anyways.
Let's get into the news. There's only really like these two things that I want to talk about really quick. Jensen Ackles actually just announced this morning on Instagram that he's going to be joining season 3 of The Boys, which means I now have to watch The Boys because it's got Carl Urban in it already. So it's stupid that I haven't watched it yet. But now that it'll have Jensen Ackles. Sorry, season 1 is already out.
Yeah, I've watched
season 2 is in like the next couple weeks, I think.
Okay,
I think it's the end
I was
of
going to say, because I don't think it's quite come out yet because I haven't watched it yet. So.
Season 3, season 3 would be filming within the next few weeks if we weren't in the situation that we're in. But I think that they're gearing up for a September start of production. So that's why this announcement is coming out, because he's obviously just been cast as the character Soldier Boy.
Because he can finally do other shows, because Supernatural's ending. The last 7 episodes, I think, of Supernatural are going to air. I don't know. Again, this Jensen Ackles news came up, and then I think on my Pinterest, it started showing me tangential things for Supernatural. It's like, oh, you care about Jensen Ackles? I'm like, I really don't. I care about The Boys, though. I mean, Jensen Ackles is like... I have a real soft spot for Jensen Ackles because he has spent so much of his career in Vancouver, and I just really like that. Like all the way from like classic sci-fi like Vancouver shows. Dark Angel, man.
I just want to point out to the audience in case they missed it. Yes, Amanda is the last one using Pinterest. Okay. She's still using Pinterest. That's why every once in a while when you Google something, a Pinterest link comes up and you go to look at it and you're like, oh, this is Pinterest. I can't. There's no text associated with this. There's no link to anything.
I am also terrible.
It's literally just a picture and is not helpful.
When I pin things, I also am terrible for never changing. It's like a no-no on Pinterest. You're supposed to write something different, like when you repin something. And I just don't. I just want to like remember what the original thing is. And one of the worst things that I really enjoy about Pinterest is reading the stuff that's stolen from Tumblr. Like it's really like the text.
Well, box. I mean, I think you're in safe territory because it's just you and that 162-year-old lady who's really into quilting. So
okay. That cannot be true because the intersection of things I love always come up on Pinterest and they're always new. And I'm like, I really enjoy this random crossover, like, fan fiction of, like, we've talked about this before. Pride and Prejudice and Star Wars intersect much more on Pinterest than you would expect, probably.
More than I'm gonna look into because I just don't like Pinterest as an interface. I just think that it's an obnoxious site. But
so it's
cool.
pretty pictures of houses that I quite like. I just post pictures of pretty houses.
So Jensen Ackles is gonna be on The Boys. That's it. That's the end of that news story. I told you it was quick. And then this was interesting. I read this a few days ago that Disney is telling everybody. Exhibitors, so movie theater companies, that New Mutants is still going to open in theaters on August 28th.
Interesting.
Which, some theaters are. I mean, the theater by me is open, and I looked at the seating chart, and it's like you got like 2 seats next to each other, like that you're obviously supposed to buy together, and then you got like 4 seats between you and the next person. So I think I counted it on one of the theaters that I was looking at. It's like maybe 16 people to a theater.
Right.
In some instances. And I said to Crystal, that's totally fine by me. Yeah. Like, because I'll still wear my mask. I don't mind wearing a mask if I'm sitting in a chair watching a movie. That's not a big deal. Like, I'll still wear my mask and and whatever. I don't know. We haven't sort of like bit the bullet on it just yet, but that's more about scheduling. It's like, when am I going to go to the movie theater right now? We've got the kids 90% of the time. But I would like to go to the movie theater, especially because there's no new movies in the theater right now. So it's like, they've been like rotating Star Wars movies through. So like Empire Strikes Back was in the theater a few weeks ago, and I really wish I would have gone and watched that. Jurassic Park is just always playing right now, like the original Jurassic Park. And
I wouldn't
it's like,
mind seeing that in movie theaters. That would be sweet.
I'll go watch
Fun
Jurassic
fact
Park.
about Jurassic Park: I was too young to be able to see it when it came out. Like for parental guidance reasons than my parents. But I had a friend whose dad worked at the movie theater, and I remember seeing the helicopter scene, like the very last bit, like through the top little window where the projector comes out of Jurassic Park. So that like Jurassic Park in my mind is that helicopter escaping the island. Like that is my like first impression of Jurassic Park.
That's really sad.
I would totally watch it in a movie theater.
So you've never seen Jurassic Park in a theater?
I don't think so. No.
Wow.
Yeah.
You should go see it.
I think I would enjoy it.
Jurassic Park is one of like my earliest, like not earliest theater film going experiences, because I definitely I was 8, so I'd been to the movies a ton. But it's one of the first I would say really memorable. I remember how I felt in the theater while watching that movie, particularly the first, because I saw Jurassic Park in the theater. I want to say, I don't know, 5 times.
Wow.
That summer, because I just kept making people take me to it. And the reason why is because the first 3 times I saw it, I couldn't watch, because I was 8, I couldn't watch the T-Rex sequence.
Oh, yeah. Cause
it would get to the point where the T-Rex would come out of the electric fence, right? She pulls it down and steps out and roars, and my hands would go over my eyes. And it would be like, is it done? Is it done? Is it done? And so I went with my dad, opening weekend, with my dad and my friends of our family, Auntie Tara and Uncle Neil. And I remember my dad being annoyed that I didn't watch that part. And then I made him take me back a week later, or a week or 2 later, and did it again. And so when I asked for the 3rd time to go see it, because I was I wanted to conquer that, right? I wanted to see it.
Yeah.
Because I loved the rest of the movie. I could handle the rest of the movie, which now as an adult, I find the raptor stuff to be way more suspenseful, way more
the stuff in the it's not the thing
T-Rex
is
stuff.
The difference is that the stuff with the T-Rex includes the kids, and that fear
well, no,
is
the
the
raptor
kids.
stuff
The raptor
includes
stuff includes the kids too. Yeah, that's fair.
I think it's the scale of it, right?
Yeah,
it's
maybe.
But yeah, so the 3rd time I asked him, he was like, "I'm not taking you back to the movie so that you can just." And it's so funny because now as an adult, now as a dad, I totally know that feeling of I'm not wasting money taking you to this movie again just for you to miss the part that you want to see so bad. So I conned one of my mom's coworkers into taking me, another friend of the family, and it was on the 3rd time with her that I finally got the guts and watched it, and then needed to go back again and again to see it over and over. So yeah, I saw that movie 5 times in the theaters, and then I saw it when they did the 3D re-release, and yeah, Jurassic Park's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Which is good. I will say, I think that it's really interesting to me that you were on the cusp of being able to watch it, because I'm a year younger, right? Yeah. And this is the thing too. You're the youngest of 3 boys, right? Yeah. And I'm the oldest of 2 girls.
Yeah.
And that one age difference plus the difference of generationally, your parents would have been used to aging you up for stuff, whereas my parents aged me down because of my sister. So it makes sense that my parents wouldn't have let me see the movie, because I'm kind of why didn't I see Jurassic Park?
It's not even my parents as much as it is having that brother that is 5 years older, 4.5 years older than me.
Yeah.
Because the first horror movie that I ever saw would have been around that same time, around 93, 94. I think probably 93, and it was Leprechaun. Have you ever seen the Leprechaun movies?
No, because I was too. They wouldn't let me watch it. Leprechaun
they're terrifying.
Was the first
they're
real.
They
seem, yeah.
They're also very funny, and now as an adult, it's there's a campiness to them.
90s horror is great.
But at the same time, the horror elements of the Leprechaun, especially the first 2 Leprechaun movies, they get sillier as they go, which all of them do, right?
Yeah.
That's the hallmark of 90s horror, is that the more you do it, the more outlandish the stuff gets, the less scary it is. That first Leprechaun, I remember he has these fingernails that can grow out. Sorry, Sarah Beth, we're talking about horror movies. You literally just said on the Facebook group that you don't do horror. I'm not going to describe this in too much detail, but his fingernails would like grow out so that he could kill people, right? That's how he would cut like slit throats and stuff. Because it was a slasher movie about a weird leprechaun monster. If you stole his gold, he would kill you. There's a great joke about Lucky Charms cereal in it. And then Jennifer Aniston's in the first one. That's another highlight. But I remember, I don't know if it's in Leprechaun 1 or 2, because obviously I was a kid. I was 8, so and traumatized by them. But there is a scene where he like extends the nail like into someone's eyeball, and it's like, and that's gross. Like that. It was like body horror type stuff, like the torture porn type, before we had a word for that. That is still like, that's still good horror. Like that's it's no good. It's not fun. It's fun to subject yourself to it, but it's not like, you guys know what I mean. But I can remember, like, you're right, because having a brother 5 years older than me, after Jurassic Park came out, a movie called Carnosaur came out. I might have talked about this on the podcast previously.
I've never heard of this movie.
Okay. There's a film series actually called Carnosaur that is from around the same time. And it's very hokey and very cheesy, but it is about and some people think that it is actually inspired by Jurassic Park, but like it's like an unlicensed sort of Jurassic Park sort of thing. And it's less about like, oh, we're going to make these for a park, but we're going to genetically engineer dinosaurs for, I think it's for military purposes. Like, I think that they want them to be like murder machines, right?
Yeah.
It's evil scientists. And at one point in the movie, the main scientist, I think she's the main scientist who like developed this. She has like, one of the ways that they make the carnosaurs is by injecting them into a female host, like a human host.
What?
Yeah, and so she gives birth to a carnosaur. And I always thought, this is why I think I've talked about this on the podcast before, and listeners can
it's likely that I just forgot about it.
Yeah, it is. It's highly likely you forgot, but that our keen listeners will remember. That's how I learned about the birds and the bees. That is how I learned where babies come from. Not that it was, because it was never, again, being the youngest of 3, I don't think that it was ever like a secret. It was never it was never like a Cabbage Patch situation. But it was something of like, that you'd never babies really, come from storks. Thought of before, it was just, but like that was the first time that my 8-year-old brain was expanded into the knowledge of like, babies come out of women. They come out of their private area, right? Because this dinosaur comes shooting out of this lady. And like, it's not like you see bits or anything, but like, she's like on the ground with her legs up. And so like, between that and Look Who's Talking, my parents never had to have that talk with me. Is it upsetting
that the part that bothers me the most about that is that like, dinosaurs are not mammals? Like, that's the most...
But carnosaurs had human DNA in them, so you're like,
I'm sorry.
Listen,
I'm sorry.
All right, you just sound ignorant.
Okay. Fair. I'll take that one.
We should watch Carnosaur sometime.
No, we should not watch Carnosaur.
They are not scary.
Dude, if we're gonna watch something, we should watch Gremlins, because I've also never seen Gremlins.
Oh my god. At Christmas, we're watching Gremlins.
Okay.
At Christmas, we're watching Gremlins.
Is that one of those movies that's like a Christmas movie? But
it is a Christmas movie. No, it is a Christmas movie. He literally gets Gizmo, the Mogwai, which is where the Gremlins come from. He gets him as a Christmas gift. It's a Christmas movie, for sure.
Interesting.
But it is also a horror movie. And it's also a comedy. Gremlins is one of the best movies ever made. I can't believe you've never seen Gremlins. We're going to fix that. You're gonna isolate for 2 weeks, and then you're going to come over and you can sit like far away from us on the couch on a different seat. We'll rearrange the living room if we have to.
So that I can be on my own and watch Gremlins.
And we'll all wear masks, and we'll make Crystal wear a mask. She's the risk. She's been working with all these kids and stuff. She's the risk. But and you can come over and we'll watch Gremlins at Christmas time.
I love it.
Yeah, man, Gremlins is so good. Cool. Do you want to get into the main topic? We didn't really actually talk about the fact that New Mutants is expected to come out.
Oh yeah,
New Mutants has been delayed like 4 times.
And it's like if they were gonna like go like meh, let's see how this movie goes. I feel like New Mutants is definitely the movie that doesn't surprise me at all. That they're like meh, let's just see what happens.
Technically, it's Disney, right? Like testing the waters with this. So it's interesting that this is happening because it's a Fox movie, but it's a Fox movie that they acquired in the bio. So Disney is testing both sides of it. Like, let's put New Mutants out and see if anybody goes to see it, and let's put Mulan out in Premier Access, which is what they're calling this new format.
That is a biased litmus test because nobody would have gone. Fewer people would have gone to see New Mutants anyways, right? Ugh.
Well, certainly without an advertising campaign.
Well, right, yeah.
Yeah,
don't
that's
even know
a bit of
what
a
is
problem.
happening.
But,
right.
Anyways, let's get into our main topic.
Okay.
Or wait.
We have to talk about what we've
watching.
been watching. But I was okay if you skipped it because I was terrible at I didn't watch anything. But you watched stuff. Talk about your stuff.
I finished Ghost of Tsushima, so I'm done that game. I'm done that video game, which means that this list is going to be longer in coming weeks because now I have time again. But I also watched the first episodes of Lower Decks and Lovecraft Country. Lovecraft Country I actually watched like right before recording, basically while I was eating dinner tonight. So Lower Decks I watched on my phone while I was putting Cassie to sleep. So putting Cassie to sleep means sitting in a chair while she sleeps on you until she's so asleep that you can put her in the crib without her crying. So there's a lot of waiting involved in that. So I put my headphones in and I watched the first episode of Lower Decks. Actually, I think it might have even been at like 1:30 in the morning. It might have been her waking up in the middle of the night and getting her back to sleep.
Yeah. Man, having kids is a lot of work.
I was underwhelmed, but I will say I was underwhelmed in exactly the way I was expecting to be underwhelmed. So I'm not disappointed in the show. It has a lot of potential, but I think it's going to need to get out of its own way. It's way too concerned with being irreverent and thumbing its nose at Star Trek. It needs to tone that down a little bit.
You need to love the source material.
It needs to be Star Trek.
Yeah.
But then have fun with the fact that it's Star Trek a little bit more. But it's also the pilot, and I expected for the pilot and for the whole first season for them to do a lot of like, hey, what about this trope? Hey, what about this? And it'll be like in the second and third seasons where they run out of that stuff to talk about, where they have to start creating organic comedy from the actual show based on the relationships. I like the characters. I like a lot of what they're doing. Yeah, I mean, there's also a lot of like recycled. Rick and Morty does it better. I think like that's kind of the biggest thing is that like Dan Harmon is way more clever than the writers on Lower Decks, and Justin Roiland as well. So and then on top of that, they're not tied to a franchise, so they like Rick and Morty. The gloves are 100% off. Like anything is fair game, and they go to disgusting, filthy, awesome places with that. So if you wanted to experience a better version of Lower Decks, Rick and Morty is the better version. But at the same time, it's like, well, you know, there aren't always new episodes of Rick and Morty to watch. Like you know, you're gonna run out of episodes of that, and so watch this as well. So I think it's worth it for people to check out and see if it's their cup of tea. Lovecraft Country, on the other hand, I was blown away by. I expect that I'm going to be in the minority on this. I don't think that it's going to hit with the general audience in the way that HBO would want it to, but it is so well crafted. I guess that's a pun as I look at the word Lovecraft, but like everyone involved is firing on all cylinders. The cinematography is excellent. The acting is off the charts. I think that the three main characters are so believable and great. Journey Smollett is one of them, who we talked about a lot when we talked about Birds of Prey. She was Black Canary in that. And the mystery of it is incredible. And if you don't want any spoilers, I'm just gonna talk about this really quick. I would actually suggest that most people, if you know you're already interested, that you skip ahead, because I don't want to ruin any of the experience. Like, just go into this first episode as blind as possible. But if you want the full recommendation, then listen. But if not, skip ahead a couple minutes. For Amanda starting what she's watching. Okay, this is spoilers now. In the first episode, I thought this would be like most horror, and especially like most Arkham horror, like Lovecraft type stuff, where it's like in the shadows, skittering sounds, and it's a lot of like what you don't see that's scary. They do not do that in this show. Isn't
that Lovecraftian though, to like see the like
yes, but
beast?
Nobody does it right. That's
right.
the point.
I mean,
that everybody shies away from it and does the Jaws approach of like just show the fin because it's scarier. And yes, it is, but the monsters aren't the scary part of Lovecraft. That's missing the point. The monsters are the window dressing to get you in. The scary part of Lovecraft is the human beings, right? That's always. Like, that's the twist in every Lovecraft, is that humans are the real monsters after all. And he exemplifies that because he was a horrible racist bigot. So, this show gets into it. It gets into that whole aspect of it. It nails that part of Lovecraft's storytelling, but they call out Shoggoths by name, like they say that term because the main character has read Lovecraft. This is a world where the author exists. But we're getting into an idea of like, also he was writing about something real, right? Which is one of the things like one of the things that a lot of fans of Lovecraft believe, which is that he had like a window into a reality that most of us ignore or can't comprehend.
Cool.
And so, like, they call out a lot of this Lovecraftian stuff by name, and then we see the monsters. We see them in full view for more than a half a second, and they are amazing. They are glorious to behold. They are so well done, and it's so good, and I can't believe that, like, that a show is actually going there, because the last thing that HBO did that got into this territory was True Detective season 1, and all we got was like a little tiny bit in the middle of that season and then the moments at the end of the first season, and it was all very like, did that really happen?
True Detective is not about murder.
It absolutely is, but there's a Lovecraftian element to it that's very, very light. It's like saying that you put mayonnaise on a sandwich when what you did was you put mayo on somebody else's sandwich and then you used a piece of bread to wipe the mayo off of the knife, and you went, yeah, I put mayo on that one too, right? Like, it was like if you took a bite and you ate most of the sandwich and you were like, this was a sandwich without mayonnaise, and then you took your last bite and you were like, was there mayonnaise on the sandwich?
Mm-hmm.
And then you think about that sandwich for about 3 months because you're like, was there more mayonnaise on that sandwich than I thought? And you rewatch it and you're
this
like,
is a very vivid analogy, and I ate mayonnaise on my sandwich today. So.
Oh, there you go. It was very relatable. My analogies are known for that. Anyways, the other thing that I think is worth shouting out, and that I think will get you to maybe check it out, is that the opening of this first episode is an incredible sequence with a Martian invasion, but like the show takes place in the 1950s, so it's very realistic, like very high fidelity 1950s style flying saucers and War of the Worlds 3-legged like laser beam shooting things, and one of the flying saucers stops and the green beam comes out the bottom, and out of that comes a red Martian woman. And when our character wakes up from this dream sequence, he's been reading A Princess of Mars.
Oh, cool.
So it's
nice.
and like they actually talk about it. Like, they actually talk about John Carter. So,
cool.
Yeah.
I'm very impressed that went there. I was like, I guess Mike just knows that I like UFOs, I guess. Like, why is this
Yeah,
interesting?
no,
But no, it's the John. I like it.
Yeah, it's the John Carter element.
Yeah.
And then it gets into all sorts of sci-fi, fantasy, horror stuff that's really cool. But then like the characters are just relatable and great. But the thing that is the most standout for me is the score, which like the score is phenomenal, and it's almost like John Williams, but like the Lovecraft version of a John Williams score.
Nice.
And it's scored by Laura Karpman, and Raphael Sadiq is also credited on the first episode, or it was, I saw it on IMDb. But I think Laura Karpman is doing like the score, and then I think that Raphael Sadiq is maybe doing some of the diegetic music, like the in-world stuff, as well as a little bit. There's some anachronistic elements to it, of like the soundtrack and incorporates some modern music as well, because it's about the main characters are African American. It's the 1950s. It's about racism, right? Like that's what it's about. But yeah, I love it so far in the first episode. Crystal watched it with me and actually is like down to watch the rest of the series with me. Nice. So I can't put a higher stamp of approval on it than that, because I had to explain to her who H.P. Lovecraft was about 15 minutes in, because she doesn't care about that sort of thing. So once I did, she was like, oh, okay. Like, I kind of get this now. And her touchstone was like, because I was having a hard time explaining Lovecraft to her, because it's very difficult to explain Lovecraft to somebody who doesn't know what it is. And I was like, Hellboy is the imagery in Hellboy is borrowed from Lovecraft, like the tentacled gods and stuff like that. Like, that's all very Lovecraftian. And she was like, oh, okay, yes, that makes sense. And then we get to the end of the episode, and it was like, see? You see the monsters now. Yeah. You see what I'm talking about. But yeah. What have you been watching?
Nothing interesting. That's like I feel really bad that I'm not really watching anything interesting. I think I've sort of mentioned, like, I watched like my staples, like John Oliver, now that I'm back in Vancouver, because it was my like stuff that I PVR. And then, but I did on Netflix, they actually have some like decent like releases that they keep coming out. Like, Netflix still has a lot of live action content, so I'm kind of like impressed to see like when it dries up. But they got new rom-coms, so I watched The Lost Husband, which was like, it's an alright rom-com. But the thing that I thought was interesting is that it had Carly Pope and Josh Duhamel in it, and I know both of them from like teen movies of the like early 2000s, so it's like really interesting to see them be parents, like, or be like older. And anyways, so that's kind of one of those aging existential crises type things. Carly Pope, no, it was starring Leslie Bibb, but Carly Pope was in it, and I don't know if people watched Popular way back when Popular was on, but like Carly Pope and Leslie Bibb were both like the stars of Popular, and I just think it's interesting that they're sometimes in each other's movies. But it's a Leslie Bibb movie. Carly Pope is one of the friends, one of the mean girl friends. But anyways, and then I haven't caught up on the latest season of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, so I was catching up a little bit on that stuff. Cool. And then Lucifer is coming out soon, so I'm excited to like finish watching Lucifer when that comes out. I think it's coming out this weekend, August 21st, and then for the final, like the first part of the final season. And then they're like that new movie Project Power, I like almost watched, but I didn't quite watch it because it seemed like it would be a thing for me to like have to actually like watch it.
You know what we have to watch, we both have to watch, is The Old Guard. You haven't watched it yet,
I know. I haven't watched it yet. No, and I know that I think that it'll be important for us to watch it for sure.
We both definitely have to watch it. Because I think it like, from what the content is, it sounds like it's like you say, it's like important for us to watch it. I think we will also just both really like it.
Yeah, I know. So it looks like, pretty good. Yeah. It looks pretty good, which is awesome. And then the final thing that I like didn't actually watch, but I like watched peripherally, is I started watching a lot of like shipper videos, because sometimes I just do that on YouTube. where it always starts out like pretty like I was watching like some Gossip Girl videos. But anyways, then like Malik is like my favorite like shipper. It's like from Shadow Hunters.
Yeah.
And then I like watched a video where it actually like has the relationship of the two characters. It's Magnus Bane and Alec Lightwood. But through the whole series, because I was like, oh, I don't really care. I'll just like watch this. And then I like watched it, and it was like it got past the point of what I had watched. But I actually realized I've watched most of the Mortal Instruments series. I didn't realize it only has the 3 seasons. I feel like that's probably part of the uproar of it getting canceled or whatever. But it is on like it's on. I'm like so close to finishing that series. So then it just like inspired me to be like, I gotta finish watching Shadow Hunters. So that's like my new thing is like I gotta. But although I don't want to be disappointed because I know that it doesn't like. I think it does end though. Like, but really, I just care about those 2 characters. Like the rest of the characters are superfluous to me, even though they're not the main. I know that you're supposed to care about the main characters, but very rarely do I care about the main characters.
You know what's really weird to me is that like that show with that huge fan base that like they and it's like I don't know if it's a huge fan base, but it's definitely a vocal fan base.
Yeah.
Like they're very passionate about it, which is awesome. There's that show, and then somehow the 100 is still on.
Yeah, I know,
and
right?
It's still like I swear to God that show had a series finale already, and yet like, or maybe it just happened now, but like people are still talking about the 100, and I'm like, who's watching this other than like the 3 people on Twitter that I see talking about it? And it just keeps getting seasons.
Yeah, but that came up as like a recommend because I did. Oh, this is what happened. I came back on Saturday, and then Saturday night I sat on my couch just watching all the previews on Netflix of all the things that I didn't wind up watching.
Yeah.
But also one of the YouTube clips that got advertised to me, or like that I was kind of like interested in watching, was actually like Tyler, however you pronounce his last name, Superman from Supergirl.
Hoechlin?
Yeah. And it was all I could tell was that it just said the name of the 2 characters. It's like these 2 characters, like Derek and something. And it's like the best moments of Derek and so-and-so. And so watching the clip, I could tell that it was a movie about werewolves or like a show about werewolves. But there are so many shows about werewolves that I had no idea. It's Teen Wolf. I didn't know that he was. I didn't know that he was in Teen Wolf. But anyways, it was like that is my exposure now to Teen Wolf is this like video of Tyler and like the other kid that I feel is probably the star of Teen Wolf because he looks really familiar. I feel like it's the guy from the Suicide movie or television series, the like Words Heard or the
13 Reasons Why?
Yeah, that one. Mm-hmm. Does that guy star in Teen Wolf? I don't know. The guy looks very generic. I feel like it's a very generic guy.
I mean, like, I don't think that I'm going to look up Teen Wolf first, because if I go the other way. No.
Okay.
Tyler Posey, I don't think is in 13 Reasons Why.
I don't know. He just,
to my recollection,
he looks generic like the guy that stars in 13 Reasons Why. So I haven't watched either Teen Wolf or 13 Reasons Why.
I would say decidedly not.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I would say that they are very different looking. He is definitely not in it.
They look generic enough to me that I was like, anyways.
What else was Tyler Posey in? He is a voice in a bunch of stuff. He was in Scream, the TV series, but only for 2 episodes. I don't think he's really done a heck of a lot other than that.
No, it's not that guy. Sorry, I don't know. Again, I watched a shipper video with these 2 people in it. Was it Scott? Maybe it is this guy. No, it looked like somebody different on the.
I'm looking through. So there's Tyler Hoechlin. What guy from this?
Dylan O'Brien. Who's this guy?
No, he's not. Yeah, I don't.
But maybe that's the guy that's the guy that I thought looked like the guy from 13 Reasons Why.
Gotcha.
He looks much more like the guy from 13 Reasons Why then.
You're a little bit closer, but
he's from the Maze Runner. Okay, I knew I had seen him in something where I was like, this dude that looks. But again,
is he the main Maze Runner? Is he the?
I think potentially he's the main Maze Runner guy.
The Maze Runner is such a like I can't with that series because it's such a very obvious Hunger Games ripoff, where like Hunger Games is already informed by so many other things. It's like The Rise of Skywalker, which ties into our uncut topic, where it's like The Rise of Skywalker is a movie inspired by Star Wars movies, as opposed to what you want, which is The Last Jedi, where Rian Johnson goes back and he looks, and The Mandalorian, where the creators go back and they don't look at Star Wars for inspiration. They go back and they look at the stuff that George Lucas was inspired by.
Right, and then
that's where they pull inspiration from.
Yeah.
Maze Runner is very much like, instead of looking at what the influences were that got us to Hunger Games, it was like, let's just take the Hunger Games and put it in a maze. It's like that. Instead of it being Hunger Games, it's Maze Games,
and make it entirely male. Like, that is the thing that is the thing about the Maze Runner. I don't know. Have you read the books, the Maze Runner books? So I did read the Maze. I read the books. Boys? So I didn't watch the movies. Yeah. Really, I think I may have watched the first one. The books are actually pretty good, but they're all men, and it's men. They're boys. So it's very inspired by. And so the one thing that I think is it's actually Piggy Island Flies, Lord of the Flies. Yeah. It's it's actually Lord of the Flies way more than it is Hunger Games.
Gotcha.
And so with that, it's a modern day Lord of the Flies. And then there's a thing in it where the very last person, I mean, spoilers for Maze Runner, but like
you had your chance.
The very last like person to be delivered to the maze is a girl, and it like throws the whole thing off, and it turns out that they have like a psychic link, and there's a whole bunch of lore, and it's actually kind of interesting, but it is kind of like, it was basically like Hunger Games for guys, but then they went back to their like, if a bunch of guys were on an island together, what would happen? And Lord of the Flies, isn't it? Anyways, it's rather semi interesting. I do kind of like the Maze Runner, but only the books, and I always just think books because you can put whatever else you want onto them. I will say though, it's very Hunger Games-esque. My dad bothered me to no end. I made them watch The Good Place while I was home, and he kept being upset because he's like, every season is exactly the same. They're just doing the same thing but in a different place. And I'm kind of like, that's what makes shows good, is if you do the same concept but you find a different like way, like the characters are what you get excited about. Anyways, but I know people would disagree with that. But I kind of think that that's what works about series like The Hunger Games or like The Maze Runner. Like, it's the same idea every season or book or episode or whatever. It's just like a different like conceit, where it's like they were in a maze and now they're in a burning scorch field.
I will say that you bring up 13 Reasons Why and the generic main character. The actor, Dylan Minnette, he is who I would cast if we were gonna do like a very like true to source material X-Men MCU casting. He's who I would cast as Cyclops. He like would,
generic boy.
He would nail that role. Well, no, it's not. See, this is the thing: is that Cyclops isn't as generic as he's made out to be. He's a much more complex and nuanced character than, I think, certainly than the Bryan Singer movies let him be, and even the two newer ones that Cyclops is in. He's a much more interesting character than that, and Dylan Minnette could play that very broken, very traumatized teenager aspect of Scott Summers that makes him Scott Summers. And I could see that actor aging up with the character, because one of the things with the MCU is that you have to look at the long game of it, right? You have to look at it not now. You have to look at Tom Holland and go, can he play Spider-Man for the next 20 years, right? And that's why he starts as a teenager and he'll end as adult Peter Parker, right? And you want the same thing for the X-Men, except for Wolverine. You want somebody who's already fairly old, but that won't age.
That's fair. Yeah. So
in my ideal, I'm not going to get too into this because I do want to do this fan casting episode with Matt Campbell at some point. We've talked about doing this. But my choice for Wolverine is and always will be until such time as it's no longer a viable option. But we got a long time before that'll happen. It's John Boyega. Okay. Just to go a completely different direction with that character, to diversify the cast of the X-Men, so it's not just a bunch of white people with a couple of token ethnicities in there. But yeah, man, John Boyega as Wolverine would be awesome.
Nice. Can I just say that I have looked further into, like, because I'm like, why would the internet suggest something for me that was completely, like, it's like when you use the names of people that, it's like usually shipper videos at least have, like, you can tell, like, what the series is that it is. But I guess if you watch Teen Wolf, like, these two characters, like, I guess it's Styles and Derek, because I remember Tyler, the person that Tyler was called Derek, and then this other person that I've now, who has the same name, Dylan. Okay, come on. I was, like, not far off. They're both, like, white boys named Dylan. Anyways, his name's Styles, and if you type in Styles and Derek, the internet gives you a lot of stuff.
It's Steric, right?
Yeah,
it's the Steric ship. So that's that. There's a funny story with that because Steve Glosson and Derek Russell, who did the Smallville podcast, that was one of it. Like Starkville House of L was like the third podcast that I found. When I started listening to podcasts, right? It was. Freelance Switch was the first one, which was about being a freelance creative. And then that's what got me into podcasts. And then I immediately, once I was like, podcasts, I put in Star Wars and found the Forcecast, which was the #1 Star Wars podcast at the time. And then I was like, I wonder if there's a Smallville podcast. Nice. And she was the one that came up. Steve and Derek had a co-host name that was Steric. It was not shipping at the time, but it became that. And nice. and then Teen Wolf came out and stole their ship.
Well, that is apparently such a big ship that when I was just looking at random shipper videos, because it's not the first time, and this is the thing, it's not the first time that video has been, like, suggested for me. And I don't know. I didn't know that it was Tyler, like the Superman. I didn't because in the video you can't really tell who it is. I just saw the Dylan dude. I didn't know who the other guy was. And then I actually watched it. I was like, hey, this is the Superman guy. But nowhere in watching it could I tell what the show was. Like, it was really frustrating. Where I just, like,
because at no point in time when somebody is a werewolf is there romantic stuff happening, right? It's all of the, because I think with that one, I think with the Steric one, that's like an unrequited, like that. I don't think that one happens in the show.
No, I don't think so. It doesn't seem like
it's like what the fans wanted.
The very top search, you know how, like, it says people ask. The very top one is, do Styles and Derek kiss?
Yeah.
So I was like, maybe they did, but no. The top hit is fanfiction.
It's the Community season 5 joke. Of is it season 5? Maybe it's season 4. I think it's season 4 or 3. It's one of the ones where they do the clip show. They do the fake clip show of all of the stuff that never happened.
Right.
I think it's season 3 actually. And then, like, at the end of towards the end of that episode, they're like, yeah, well, you know, like, you and talking to Jeff is like, you and Annie with your whole deal, and they're like, what are you talking about? We don't have a deal. And then they play a bunch of the clips with a love song over it, and it's all like in slow-mo or whatever, and they're like, and then Annie's like, you could do that with literally anyone. And then they go back and they do it with I think with Troy, with Abed and Pierce. Where it's just like all of these like do you have a pencil? Like, can I borrow a pencil? And they like hands him a pencil, but it's like in slow motion with the song over, and it's like which is just, because Community is the best, and it's like that's what the Steric shipper videos are. It's like all these innocuous moments throughout the series where they're trying to make it happen. And look, I'm not throwing shade at any person whatsoever, because I am still incensed that Poe Dameron and Finn are not together. And was literally, as we started recording tonight, looking at a tweet that had a moment of the two of them at the end of Last Jedi where their arms touch, and the person was like, come on, why didn't this happen? It was clearly there. And it's like, their arms are touching, dude. Like, yeah, they're standing closer to one another than I think most people would be comfortable. And I absolutely want that to be romantically inclined, but I don't. I think it's a bit of a stretch to take that 2-second shot of them standing close to one another and their arms touching briefly.
But I love that people can just see whatever they want to see in, like, it's like taking really like interesting sort of friendship or like just characters that would never, that other people don't see it, but it's like, I don't know, it's real great. I don't know. I said
this on Faster More Intense a couple weeks ago when we had Ty Black on the show. She does awesome videos on YouTube about like hero's journey, mythic storytelling type stuff, and she talks about Star Wars a lot in them. Most of them are revolving around Star Wars. And we were talking about the Star Wars storytelling and, you know, like the letdown of Rise of Skywalker and where people would have wanted that to go, and how people find solace in fan fiction and rewrite the stories or write their own continuations, and how I am working on my own fan fiction because I am not satisfied with the end of Rise of Skywalker. So until Lucasfilm gives me a definitive continuation of that story, I'll just do it myself, just to like fill that void in my own soul, right? Like, and within that, I have Finn and Poe together. They're going to be together in that because that's what seems natural to me, and that's what's gonna make me feel happy and good. And what I had said at the end of that conversation about fan fiction was like, it really like people want to look down on fan fiction, and I certainly have said some derisive things in the past. But mostly tongue-in-cheek. But the thing is that, like, Star Wars itself is fan fiction. George Lucas wanted to make a Flash Gordon movie, and he couldn't get the rights. Yeah. So he just made up his own Flash Gordon. He just took the same characters and scenarios, and he blended them with Westerns and samurai movies, and added a spiritual component with the Jedi, and voila, all of a sudden you have a Star War. Like,
but that's the beauty of like all sorts of storytelling, and that people create things. Like, I created a freaking web series about William Shakespeare as a modern day university student. Like, we nerded about, and it's so nerdy stuff. But the one thing I will say that I was always like really, I never really stray far from canon, because I tend to like the pairings, like some really obvious pairings, and I just tend to gravitate towards them. Yeah. Like Lois and Clark and Alice. But I was real proud of myself that I was the only one that seemed to be shipping Rey and Kylo. After the first, like, I remember being so proud of myself that I was like, I ship these people that nobody else will ship. And that I was like, I don't care what anybody says, I need to find something to ship. And people being like, you don't have to actually. But it's like, Star Wars is a love story at its core. All of them are a love story. Anyways, so that was my only real, like, diverging from the, like, canon. And then I just, like, loved it so much that it became canon, because that's how I do it. There is so talking about Pinterest, after looking at, because I tend to look at a lot of shipper stuff, then there was a little thing about fan fiction that was like taken from Tumblr, and it's like, when you really like, it's like, what do you do if you don't like that? Like, the characters aren't really together, and you're just not satisfied by the ending, and you're like, you really want it when you go and you like are looking at fanfiction.net, and then they're like, oh no, it was like basically like a bunch of people like riffing on different fan fictions. It's like, you're in a bad place when you go to like Archive of Their Own, and they're like, no, you're in a real bad place when you go to like fanfiction.net. And it's like, no, you're in a real bad place when you're staring at a blank Word doc. And it's like, when you're like writing your own fanfiction, because it's
not blank anymore. It's not blank anymore.
I love it.
I'm
excited.
I was actually making edits to my outline today.
Whoa.
Yeah,
nice.
So
I'm doing Pride and Prejudice fan fiction right now, actually. Yeah. But I just realized it's not actually, I don't consider it fan fiction. I consider it story building, because it's in public domain and therefore could be potentially made into something real. So, but I'm quite excited by it.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, is that like you just take your fan fiction, you write it, and then if it's good, change all the character names. You just change all the characters' names, the setting, and
publish Twilight and make $1 billion.
Yeah, and you make it about a very poor interpretation of BDSM culture, and you make $1 million, billion, trillion dollars. Cool. Speaking of making $1 million, billion, trillion dollars, it's time for ads. See how I did that?
Oh, whoa.
That's skill. That's podcasting skill, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, somebody, I do have to just say, speaking of random videos on YouTube, there is some, I guess it's like an editor. It's some sort of like editor that does edit videos constantly. But the one I came across was Mulan as 50 Shades of Grey. Mwah. It's beautiful. It
like
is
Mulan,
beautiful.
the animated Mulan.
Mulan, the animated movie, edited to be like 50 Shades of Grey, like a trailer for 50 Shades of Grey, but using only the footage and the audio from
I
50,
would
from
very
Mulan.
much like it if you would share that in the Facebook group for everyone.
I will go find it because it was so fun.
Dig back into your YouTube history and post it.
Yeah.
And feel the shame as you go through your YouTube history and go, I watched that? Oh boy. The whole thing? It's 15 minutes long.
30. The Matlock video I watched was 30 minutes long.
There you go. And it was just like a fan cam.
It was just
like a shipper
all
video.
The clips of them together for the entire 3 seasons of Shadowhunters.
I posted a fan cam edit like today on the Facebook thing for a Ben Solo one.
Nice.
But I think it's only like, I don't know, I think it's only like 7 minutes or something like that.
Oh man, I used to have, somebody had cut together a Smallville playlist that was epic. It was so huge and like hours long that was just all the Lois and Clark clips from the entire series. And I had that I would watch like pretty regularly for like 2 hours out of my day. No, I love fancam. I just love, it just takes the best content of something that you've already watched.
And that's the thing is that like, and I posted it, and then I think it was Mark on the Facebook group commented. It was Mark. I'll just read this. He said, I'd so much rather watch this movie. I'm going to edit him a little bit. Holy smokes, that was good. Like, Disney should be looking at this and feel shame. Forget the Snyder cut. Let's get the Solo cut. Because it's basically a super cut of all of the Ben Solo centric moments from the sequel trilogy. But what's really great about it, oh my God, it's so good. It cuts in Anakin stuff, and it cuts in some of the Vader and Luke stuff.
You posted this on the thing?
Yeah, it draws like the parallels, and it makes them implicit and like or explicit, and shows you the moments that mirror Anakin's fall and where Ben was at as Kylo Ren and all of that stuff. And it's so good that it made me actually appreciate those moments in Rise of Skywalker. You posted this and
I was going to watch it, and then I never did.
It's so
I will watch
good.
This tonight. I'm excited.
It's so well edited. I'm going to I already tweeted it, but you might, by the time people listen to this, it might be hard for them to go all the way back in my tweets.
A child in a mask. Yeah, this looks really good. I'm very excited.
It's Ben Solo, and then there's like 2 of those the vertical lines, the vertical line characters, and then it says a child in a mask. And it's the YouTube account is Josie Edits. So yeah, go search that on YouTube and watch it. It's so good. It's so well done. The music, the editing, the whole thing. It did literally bring me to tears at one point in it. Because it's just like the emotion is so on point. And if you aren't where I'm at with the character of Ben Solo, it might help get you there. Because, I originally didn't think the character was sympathetic whatsoever. I thought he was just a straight up bad guy. But I was dumb. Go listen to Faster, More Intense if you want to hear me talk about that at length. There's 2 episodes. Not the most recent one, but the one with Danielle, which is from about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and the one with that I mentioned before with Ty. We talk about a lot of that stuff and how dumb I was, and how much more enjoyable Star Wars is now.
Right, when you just can love stuff. And I did there's now lots of awesome content on our Thundercrack Patreon. I just posted
Cool.
Mulan.
Awesome.
Mulan, but it's like 50 Shades of Grey is what it's called. It's like editing is everything is.
Nice. I'm excited to watch that after.
And I'm excited to watch Ben Solo, A Child in a Mask. So
cool.
Yay, YouTube. That's what we watched this week. Yeah. Okay.
Let's jump into our ads. Yeah. Weren't those ads really, really good? Those ads were so fantastic. I doubt anybody feels that way. And you know what? If you don't like ads and you want to just skip over them entirely without having to push a button or do anything, the easiest way is to just give us $1. Just right now, just give me $1. Just take your phone, I guess Americans have dollar bills, don't they? Take your dollar bill and just press it really hard into the screen until it goes into the internet. And then, no, actually it's easier than that. You just go to patreon.com/thunderquack and all you only have to do it once, right? Because you sign up and then you just give us $1 every month forever. There's once you, I don't know if people know this. Once you sign up for Patreon, you're never allowed to cancel. That's a joke. People cancel all the time. Not
except
on
for
us,
our
obviously.
Patreon producers because they're awesome.
But look, you can get the episode early for $1. You can get ad free for $5. So I guess you got to press a $5 bill if you want no ads. But ad free for $5. You can get it uncut for $5, which means on this episode specifically, you'll get an extra 30 minutes. And if you want to be a Patreon producer and get a shout out like JJ Samuel and Brian Murawski do every week, you can pledge at the $20 level. And obviously that money goes to improving the podcast and helping us pay for things like hosting fees and whatnot. But we appreciate everybody who supports us over at patreon.com/thunderquack. And I hope that everybody is satisfied, happy with the rewards that they're getting. Everybody seems pretty happy about it. Patreon.com/thunderquack, and then you don't have to listen to whatever weird car commercial just played there, because we don't I can't control what the ads are. They're like dynamically inserted, and it's whatever ads Spreaker sold this week. So sometimes they make sense, and sometimes they're car commercials, which I guess makes sense to some people. I don't know. Actually, you know what? I'm curious if everybody even gets the same ads, or if, tying into our uncut conversation, do they specifically give me a lot of car ads? Because I hear a lot of car ads on our podcast.
Maybe that's just you. Interesting.
Yeah, maybe that's just me. With that, you want to get into our main topic?
Do I? Okay. I'm excited for this main topic because I thought that we had missed it. And that makes me really happy that we didn't miss it, because you can say what the main topic is and then I'll talk about why I thought I missed it. We're gonna talk about DC Fandome, which has not happened yet. Yeah. It happens this weekend. If you're listening to this on Friday, it happens tomorrow. And I just wanted to kind of run down the main panels on Saturday. If you don't know what DC Fandome is, DC, the whole thing, comics, movies, TV shows, video games, they're basically holding their own online convention, for lack of a better term. It's set up exactly like a Comic-Con sort of schedule, except that some of these panels are as short as 5 minutes, which is interesting. I think that everything is pre-recorded. I don't know that anything is happening live necessarily. It probably has to do with how much money they had to pay extra for certain people, and it was probably in some people's contracts that they had to do like up to 5 minutes worth of like
not all of the panels have celebrity guests either. Like some of them are just like one of them is like here's like your primer on the multiverse, and I think it's just like Greg Berlanti and a couple of other people talking about like, yeah, this is what the DC multiverse is, just so that you know going into, because I think that they're really trying hard to get everybody to understand the DCEU moving forward is not a continuity in the way that the MCU is. They've moved away from that, and they've been public about it, but I don't think that they've been mainstream public about that fact. Yes, Superman shows up. This is a spoiler for Shazam, I guess, but you've had over a year. Superman shows up in Shazam, but he doesn't.
Shazam. Oh yeah, no, he doesn't.
It's just from the logo down. But it is the Man of Steel Superman suit, right? So the question is Shazam in the Justice League continuity? Like, does he coexist alongside those characters? Because they also refer to Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman and stuff within Shazam. And what they've said thus far is like, no, it's like yes and no. Like, as much as it needs to be in continuity,
it can if it needs to, and it doesn't if it doesn't. And
which is really just their way of saying if it's successful, we'll fold it in. If it's not, we can make it its own thing. Yeah. And it also just means that they don't have to pay attention to continuity errors like the whole movie Aquaman, which is just 2.5 hours of continuity errors that don't make any sense with the rest of the DCEU other than the fact that he is Aquaman and he is Jason Momoa. Other than that, his character is very different. The plot implies very different things about his story than what it did in Justice League and, the whole thing. And Batman v Superman. None of it makes any sense, but that's all fine. So this Saturday, they're going to basically have a bunch of... These are the sort of panels that they would have had at Comic-Con, but that they didn't. Yeah. I'm just gonna run down the schedule really quick. Well, I'll just go through. This isn't the whole schedule. These are just, I think, the notable panels. Most of these are the movie panels, but there are a few video games and TV shows squeezed in here in a few places that I thought were notable. It starts at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. 1 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. It's DCFandome.com, I think. And it starts with the Wonder Woman 1984 panel. And then we have the Warner Brothers Games Montreal announcement. After that one at 10:30, and then at 11:45, introducing The Flash, which is about the Flash film with Ezra Miller, which is interesting. That one's only 15 minutes because at noon we have a Suicide Squad panel, which appears to be 2 hours long because the next panel, thus a surprise DC Comics panel, meaning we don't really know what it's about, is at 2:00. More than likely that's about whatever the next big event is for the comics. That's only half an hour. At 2:30, the I'm Batman, the Voices Behind the Cowl, which is a 15-minute like behind the scenes thing with a bunch of people who voice Batman. Kevin Conroy will be featured heavily, I'm sure. And then at 2:45, the Snyder Cut of Justice League panel, which again is only 15 minutes long, so don't expect a ton from that. It's probably a trailer and a little bit of chat. And then at 3:00, the Black Adam panel, which will have Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson on the panel to talk about Black Adam, so I guess that movie is still happening. That one's 45 minutes. At 3:45, it's TBA, which is very interesting. So we'll see what that one's about. We'll have a little bit of speculation in a minute. And then that again, 15 minutes. That one's a reveal of something. That's a movie that we don't know about. That's all that could be, I think. And then at 4:00, we've got the Aquaman panel, which is 15 minutes long. This is a very weird situation. Actually, maybe some of these aren't. Maybe some of these are a little bit longer because I think that I was pulling from all of the theaters.
I was gonna say, don't they like all are at different theaters, right? So it's like
not all of them. A lot of these are in the main Hall of Heroes or whatever. And then 4:15, there's a panel called Ask Harley Quinn, which is like a pre-recorded fans sent in questions, and Harley Quinn from the Harley Quinn animated series is going to answer those questions in a very Harley fashion. So cute. I just thought that I know that we have a few fans of that show. I like it; it's fine, but I'm not a huge fan. But I thought that some people would enjoy that. And then we've got a Shazam panel at 4:30, which I'm very excited about because I'm really hoping that they announce a sequel. And I'm also hoping that that will be coming off of the Black Adam panel where they will have announced that Zach Levi will be in Black Adam. And then Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, which is a video game. And then we end off with The Batman, which is the Robert Pattinson Batman movie.
Which
directed
every time people talk about that, I always just think it's an internet hoax.
Like,
I don't know, like that it's not a real thing, and I'm like, is it a real thing? So this will be
our first trailer. So
yeah, my first time like
thing as of
making it seem it seem like actually real to me. So
yeah,
which is good.
So let's go. Let's jump back to the beginning of that. Wonder Woman. What do you expect to get from this panel? The movie was already supposed to come out in July.
I know. Yeah, I don't know. Just I would like to know if it's actually going to be still in theaters. Everybody's giving up. There's a lot of people that had waited because they're like, we're going to release in the fall. And it's like, well, kind of the same now as it would have been back then. So what are you going to do about it? I don't know. I want to see ways that I could watch Wonder Woman really soon, not in theaters. So that's what I hope, is that maybe there's like streamable options.
Yeah, that's the big hope from that one, is that they do just give up. I think with Mulan coming out in this Premier Access format, I think that what we will probably hear, and it'll be confusing for Canadians and very difficult, but they'll figure out a way. I think that we'll hear something very similar regarding HBO Max. With HBO Max, you'll be able to rent or purchase Wonder Woman 1984. Because the other part of this that we have to think about is that on these timelines, Mulan should already be on digital. Yeah. Because it was supposed to come out in March, and we're usually between 4 and 6 months for digital release, right? Yeah. Like it's and that means that these companies, Warner Brothers and Disney and everybody, they have it built into their yearly budgets. They have this stuff planned out. X date, we will see this expected revenue from this release in theaters, from this release on digital, from this, then like a week, 2 weeks later, from this release on Blu-ray, right? Like they expect to see those revenue streams coming in, and it's very important for their business. So at a certain point, Wonder Woman was supposed to come out in July, which means it would have been out on digital by like August, September, October. It would have been out on digital by November anyways. It would have been on Blu-ray before Christmas, right?
Right, yeah.
So at what point do you look at that and go, okay, we've already lost our box office, right? But can we combine our box office and our digital sales with a release somewhere in between?
Is HBO Max already out? America?
HBO Max is launched but it is an American only thing. So
I just don't get that, because we get HBO, but it's just different.
But we don't actually get HBO. That's the thing, right? It's not actually HBO. It's Chorus or Bell Media. I think it's Bell Media because everything's on Crave. It's Bell licensing the HBO label, putting it on a television channel, and then putting HBO on in Canada because of the CRTC, because of our laws here. It has to be running through a Canadian company. So it's actually just like when we get Cartoon Network or whatever, it's always one of these other telecoms that has purchased the rights, and then they basically just make a duplicate television station and then air as much content as they can, and then fill in the quotas with Canadian content.
The interesting thing about that is that HBO does have just HBO content. So I think where it gets tripped up is the digital space, because digital would be owned by Crave, and then that is a separate company. Whereas the television channel, like whatever's on the actual television channel, is a little different. But it's once you get into digital spaces, because it's like subleased. Oh, that's gonna suck. I want HBO Max.
So I mean, like, it'll be somewhere.
Yeah.
They won't ignore Canada. It's a big market, right? So
it's not that big.
It's certainly not as big as China, but I mean, like, I think it would be a noticeable dent, and they can't afford noticeable dents right now. So yeah, I know. I expect that we will get news that Wonder Woman is coming to streaming platforms sooner rather than later. The Warner Brothers Games Montreal announcement is more or less confirmed to be a new Batman game. They made the Arkham games, Rocksteady and WB Games Montreal. I guess Montreal made Arkham Origins, I think. But anyways, they're going to be making a new Batman game. That's what that is. I will be very surprised if it's anything else, because all of the teasers have been talking about a knight with a knight with a K, as in the Dark Knight, and there has been eagle / falcon and owl imagery, which is all pointing towards the Court of Owls, which is a Batman storyline. So yeah, look for that. That'll be announced on Saturday. And then introducing the Flash. Short panel, short-ish panel. What do you think we're gonna see from this one? Ezra Miller's on the panel.
I was gonna say, just Ezra Miller talking about the Flash. Like, I thought that there was like controversy about Ezra Miller being the Flash. Did that movie
we were talking about the controversy, but I don't think that Warner Brothers cares about the controversy.
Oh, okay, so they're still doing the movie. Did they already shoot it?
No, I don't believe that they have.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, you know what? This one's actually only 10 minutes.
Interesting.
This 101 style conversation with the Flash filmmakers, Andy Muschietti and Barbara Muschietti, star Ezra Miller and screenwriter Christina Hodson, will give fans a speedy rundown on the first ever Flash feature film. So yeah, they're just going to go like, we're making a Flash movie and this is what it's about, and we don't have anything to show you because we haven't filmed anything.
Yeah, basically. 10 minutes does not seem like enough time to like...
No.
It's so weird. Anyways, I guess it's because it's like a high stakes.
There's going to be a lot of disappointed fanboys on Saturday.
Are they announcing that the Arrowverse is being called now just the DC verse? Is that a thing that has officially come out?
I feel
like I read that somewhere where I feel like they're like trying to deal with how they deal with having an Arrowverse without Arrow. And
I will be 100% transparent and say that since Arrow ended, I am spiritually at this moment done with the Arrowverse, and I will go back to it because I do love Legends and I enjoy the Flash and Supergirl, and obviously I want to watch Superman and Lois, but we cut the cable, cut the cord and canceled our cable months ago.
Wow.
And I have not looked back, and it's fantastic. But with that comes like, now I gotta wait for everything to be on streaming. So I don't think that Legends is on yet. So I'll finish the season. I watched like the first 3 episodes or something. And then like Supergirl and other stuff. Flash I could finish, but I don't care to because it's just the same thing every season. Oh my god. Andy's gonna get mad. But he'll just defend it. It's okay. I just can't with that stuff. So I don't like, I really don't care anymore that
all
much.
Good.
I just care about Sarah Lance, and that's really the only character that I'm like, that's the only show that I haven't finished that like this season that I'm like, I really wish I could do that, but now I have to wait for it to be on platforms. So the Suicide Squad, this will be a good one
because it'll have a trailer.
It'll have a trailer, and it's James Gunn, and he's gonna talk at length, I'm sure. Let me see how long this one actually is, because maybe I just deleted the other stuff. Oh, it's only 30 minutes.
Okay. Maybe there's nothing interesting happening between noon and 2 p.m.
Yeah. No, I deleted a bunch of stuff. I just remembered. I deleted a bunch of stuff from the rundown so that we didn't have to look at it. Because there's a bunch of stuff that's like... And
it's like now you can be encouraged to go to the DC Fandome site, which I will say looks pretty cool. It's like a map of Disney World or Disneyland, which I kind of like.
I've just looked at the schedule. I haven't...
Yeah, no, like you get to explore the Fandome, which has like different like places that you can get different kinds of information. I think it's kind of cool. I don't know what.
24 hours only, free for fans. How are you seeing a?
So you scroll
map?
down. Scroll down. Exploring the Fandome. It's not clickable yet, but I feel like maybe it'll be clickable like when they're open, like Hall of Heroes and then Funverse, Insiderverse, and Kidsverse.
What URL are you on?
DCcomics.com/DC Fandome.
I'm on a totally different URL. I'm at DCFandome.com.
Oh,
I'm going to go to yours, though.
DCFandome.com. I'll go to this one then. Interesting.
I
guess you could get lots of different things.
Oh.
Whoa, what? Why is it? I think I got spam. This is why you don't ever directly put URLs. You always just type them, and then when Google suggests a website for you, you go to it.
Anyways, what's the next thing in the schedule after? Well, I guess we're talking about Suicide Squad, right?
Yeah. I can't find the direct DC Fandome website. Interesting.
I can't find the thing that you were talking about.
DCcomics.com/DC Fandome. It's the first thing that comes up when I Google DC Fandome.
You know, it's great podcasting, talking about not being able to find web pages that people can't see anyways. I'm going to close that. Yeah, I mean, like, I think that we'll get our first real look at Suicide Squad. I think that we'll get a full trailer. And we'll find out who some of the actors are playing. Because there's a lot of actors in Suicide Squad that we still don't know who they are. We just know that they're in it. Like, Michael Rooker is in Suicide Squad. I don't think we know who Michael Rooker is playing in Suicide Squad. Because Michael Rooker is in all of James Gunn's movies.
Cool.
That's Yondu, in case you were
Yondu.
curious.
Oh, I didn't know. I have to sign up. It says that I have to sign up if I want to make a schedule. Anyways, whatever. I'll stop navigating this while I'm chatting to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we got a bunch of, like, Idris Elba is in Suicide Squad. Nathan Fillion, Pete Davidson. Like I said,
is this
Michael
a new
Rooker.
Suicide Squad or is it a sequel?
Yes.
Okay.
It's like I said, like, they're playing fast and loose with, here's a big one. Peter Capaldi is in Suicide Squad. Yeah, man, like, this cast is ridiculous. Some of these actors, we do know who they're playing. We know that Steve Agee is playing King Shark, which is very exciting because King Shark is a giant shark man. And Steve Agee as King Shark is a very interesting choice. This movie is going to be ridiculous and weird, and I'm excited about it. The Suicide Squad is the DC movie that I'm the most interested in right now, simply because it's James Gunn.
Cool.
It'll be what they wanted the first one to be, which is Guardians of the Galaxy, but for DC. Very literally.
I don't know why they just didn't make that the first time around.
Well, because they hired David Ayer instead of hiring James Gunn, because James Gunn was working for Marvel at the time.
Well, there you go.
You remember how this movie came about? Marvel fired James Gunn because of some tweets that he had previously already apologized for and everybody forgot about, because he said something mean about Trump. So Trump's conservative cronies all went after James Gunn. So Disney fired him. And then right after that happened, DC was like, hey, would you come make a Suicide Squad movie for us? And he said yes. And then soon after that, Marvel was like, we really, really need you to come back and do this. And so he is making Guardians Volume 3, but it's way behind schedule. Guardians Volume 3, I think, actually should have been out this year.
Whoa, really?
Had there not been an interruption. Yeah.
Right. Okay, interesting.
It was either this year or next year, but I think it was this year originally. I think it was supposed to be this summer, but it wouldn't have happened anyway, so doesn't matter.
Cool.
Yeah, the surprise DC Comics panel, I already said that's probably talking about the next. I don't know. I don't even know what the events are anymore. I'm so behind. Like, no, I'm not behind. I'm intentionally out of the loop on DC Comics because the comics have just been such a gong show. You get invested in anything and then they switch writers and it just goes to hell. And the characters, every writer comes in and does something completely different with the character, and it's just disjointed and they don't have any semblance of. It's just comic books are a mess regardless. It doesn't matter. So they'll announce something, some sort of, I don't know, everybody's gonna become Batman this year or something. I'll laugh so hard if that's what it ends up being. It's like everybody gets Batman powers. But Batman doesn't have any powers. Exactly. Snyder Cut. Again.
Excited to see. I want to see some more Snyder Cut stuff.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I mean, like, the last thing that we saw was during that Justice Con thing. We got to see Superman in the black suit as he was meant to be seen in Justice League, which is your first indicator that it will at least be better than Joss Whedon's Justice League. I'm going to keep saying this. I don't think it's going to be great. I don't think it's going to be a tight, well-crafted story. I think the very nature of them being like, well, it's either going to be a very long movie or 6 medium-sized episodes of something. And you're like, the fact that you guys don't know is concerning. It's concerning because, like, you better make that decision before you go back and start shooting new content. But
I think a lot of it's coming out in the editing, though, of what they already have, right? To see, like, what they need to fit in.
Yeah.
For stuff. So.
Well, I mean, like, I think that we found out very quickly after Zack Snyder found out that they were getting all of this money to go back and reshoot stuff.
That's
I don't think that they had gotten much further than the conversation by the time they announced it to everybody. So
signed the paper and then
because they want to get that hype train rolling and get people signed up to HBO Max. But yeah, I think that we'll probably get a little bit more detail. Maybe we'll get an actual definitive, this is what it's going to be. That would be nice. That would be like, I mean, and they know enough.
Yeah, they could know now. They could know now what it is. Yeah. And yeah, I agree. I think
Black Adam.
I'm excited. So that was my big question when we decided that this was when you decided. I decide nothing on this podcast. When you decided that this was the topic of today, that was my big question is Black Adam. I just saw the stupid advertisement for DC Fandome and then thought that I had missed something important, but realized that now that they were just like advertising it to me. And then The Rock as Black Adam, who I originally mistook for Black Manta because I forgot that was a different, like, I just like
as most people call him, Black Manta.
Sure.
Not Manta. I don't know what a Manta is.
I mean,
a manta ray is a thing.
Yes. I get it. I don't know. Who cares?
I do.
Understood. You knew what I meant. Anyways, and then I was like, it wasn't, and I promptly forgot about hearing that The Rock was Black Adam, and then today, 2 hours ago, you were like, and the Black Adam panel, and I was like, oh. The Shazam villain and then I was like, hey, is Zachary Levi in Black Adam? And you said, that's what the speculation's about. So it was like me asking questions that there were no answers to. So that's like the whole point of it, I guess. I want to know if Shazam is in another movie because I like Shazam.
Yeah, and I would agree. Shazam's one of the better movies that they've put out because it's a tight, self-contained story with a beginning, middle, and an end, clear themes, and an arc for our character.
Yeah.
Which is more than you can say about most of the DC movies. What's the theme of Aquaman? You might think that it's Ocean Conservancy, but then he makes orca whales cannon fodder in a war with the Atlanteans, and you're like, I don't think that Jason Momoa understands that these are endangered animals.
But there's so many whales around me, and therefore they're still around.
Exactly. Black Adam. It's interesting because Black Adam is a character who could have been around for hundreds of years, depending on how they want to play this character. Thousands of years even, because he's got like his whole ancient Egypt motif to him.
Oh yeah.
And The Rock has already done ancient Egypt in his it's in his repertoire. In fact, his first major film role was as the Scorpion King.
Yeah.
In The Mummy 2.
Oh man, the
That's
Mummy
the
Mummy world is just mwah, love it.
Oh boy. And then he made the Scorpion King, which was it was very odd for them to take the monster bad guy from the end of The Mummy 2 and then make a whole movie about how he was actually a hero before he got cursed and then became a monster.
But that's how sometimes they just like don't know it's like people like something too much and then you're like, you just ruined the whole thing by trying to make it something different. Hey, have you gone back and looked at the special effects on the Scorpion King? Oh,
it's
boy.
awful.
They are terrible. And I feel like at the time people were like super impressed with it.
It was exciting because it was actually The Rock's face in CG on a giant scorpion man.
I guess.
Yeah. And that was exciting. And he did the eyebrow. I remember that being such a big deal that he did the eyebrow thing. But yeah, it's funny because the Scorpion King is very much, this guy was a villain, but we're going to try and make him the hero of this story. Black Adam is a villain. He is one of Shazam's villains, but he's sort of a like a misunderstood villain. And he truly believes himself to be the hero of his own story. So I'm wondering if this will end up being a heroic origin story where we see him go down the path of power corrupting him.
Yeah.
And
that would
then
makes sense.
I would expect, I hope that what we're going to find out this weekend is that Black Adam is coming out. That's what it is. He starts off as a hero, very much like Shazam, but by the end of his story becomes a villain. And then when we get to the Shazam panel, they talk about, and we're doing Shazam 2, which they are. They have to be. Shazam was such a big success for them, and they have so very few of them to count. So people actually like that movie. They're going to do another one. And for them to announce, hey, by the way, Black Adam and Shazam. Black Adam's going to basically bridge the gap of introducing this villain who is going to be our main bad guy in Shazam 2.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Along with the little worm guy, Professor. I can't remember his name right now.
Professor Caterpillar. I do remember looking it up previously, and it's some sort of weird name that I do not remember.
Yeah, that's one of the things with the Captain Marvel.
It's so weird. His universe is so weird, and I love it.
Weird.
I love it so much. Shazam should not have been a good movie. First of all, It was released in the middle of summer, and it's clearly a Christmas movie, which I just love that they just like leaned into it. They're like, "Yep, nope, we just happened to release it late, and now you're getting it in the summer, and there you go."
Yeah.
And that he fights the friggin' 7 deadly sins. What a stupid concept for a movie, but I love it so much. It's so good.
It works so well, and
because they lean into it. He's a real villain, man. Like they lean into he kills people. Like it's a good.
And the effects on the 7 deadly sins are so
good. Yeah,
so good.
It's beautiful.
Again, that's an example. They don't pull the punches on that movie. Like they go there and they show you these characters, and it's scary, which is great for. I think of all of the DCEU movies, the most kid-friendly one. Right?
Yeah.
Like Shazam is I think actually a kids movie, and I think it's one of the things that makes it work well is that it is for a young audience, but it's a kids movie like movies in the 80s where it's like the bad guys are still scary.
Yeah.
Like the monsters are still monsters. We're not going to pull punches with that. To be announced. What do you think?
Well, somebody else has posted a thing where they like have like an image from where it's like film. It's titled to be announced film beside it, so it's like they're going to announce some sort of film. Yeah. But is that your question? Is like what is the film?
What do you think the movie's
going
to be?
Oh man, I have no idea. What do you think the movie's going to be?
I don't think it'll be Green Lantern because I think that they're going to tie the HBO Max Green Lantern series into the DCEU as much as they're tying anything together. So I think like they've got that already. Doesn't need to be a movie. That leaves like if we're going to talk
about a Lex
about
Luthor television series.
Well, if it's going to be a movie though, right?
Well,
so
yeah, that's
if we're talking about main heroes and movies, we're either going to get an announcement of a sequel, which most likely...
Hawkman.
What?
Hawkman.
You said Hawkman? they're not going to do a Hawkman movie.
How do you know? How do you know?
There's no way they're going to do a Hawkman movie.
Okay,
Even
because I'm
Warner
looking at my
Brothers
DC,
isn't that dumb.
but I'm looking at my DC TV, like my DC card game, my deck building game, and it's like all the main heroes from the first, like Cyborg and all those main ones are like covered in the current thing, and the main hero of the second DC card game, like deck building game, is Hawkman. So if you're going to your second tier of heroes, Hawkman
I
is
wouldn't
the
consider
second
Hawkman
tier.
to be second tier. I would consider Hawkman in the year 2020 to be third, if not fourth tier.
Okay.
If you were going to do a Hawk anything,
But they've never
you
done-
would do Hawk Girl first.
But I feel like they could like lean into the Egyptian stuff, because that there hasn't been one
But
of those.
they're probably
like,
already doing that with Black Adam. That way it would be weird
Oh,
to
yeah,
double
okay.
dip on that.
That's fair. I mean, that is, or they could save a lot of money by doubling up on all of the sets. Okay, that's yes. Never mind. Fine. I give up on my guesses. A cyborg movie.
I think a Cyborg movie is pretty likely. It's pretty high up there because they were already talking about it. I think Man of Steel 2 is a pretty big contender on this.
Well, yeah. I mean, fair.
Because of people's reaction to Justice League, to the Snyder Cut, and Henry Cavill getting his real due.
Yeah. Because he would come back, right? Like Henry Cavill would.
Oh yeah, he would do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
No problem there.
I love Henry Cavill so much because he loves Superman, and it just like makes me like him way more as a person than I think I would otherwise.
Man, who else could they pull in at this point? I don't think they'll go anywhere near Green Arrow because they just finished with that. I'm looking at a roster right now.
Like they could do some sort of like villain based thing. Booster Gold. Oh man, I would watch a Booster Gold.
So that's
I would watch
what
a
I was
Booster
going
Gold
to say.
movie. That makes a lot of sense if it's Booster
I think
Gold,
that Booster
for sure.
Gold, I actually think they two things can combine to help them fix all of this, which is it's been rumored that the Flash movie is going to be called Flashpoint, and that it will be about Flashpoint, and that it will be retconning the DCEU, that it's going to fix everything.
Before it even starts, though?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that you can do a 1-2 punch with that, and if you have a Booster Gold movie, you can have Booster be the one character who, other than the Flash, that actually knows what happened. And I like that everything is messed up. And I think that what you can do is you could do the first half of Flashpoint of that type of story in Flashpoint, in the Flash movie, where he goes back, he changes it, everything's messed up, he has to fix it. And then you deal with the repercussions in a Booster Gold Blue Beetle movie, where you have Booster come back from the future because the timeline is screwed up. And there are certain things that when the Flash put things back to normal that are still incorrect. And that the future, his future is in peril unless he comes back and he fixes certain things in the timeline. And then you can use Booster Gold to actually jump throughout the new DCEU timeline and show us all of the stuff that was retconned.
That's a cool idea.
Right?
Because that's how you immediately deal with Flashpoint. Be able to clean it up in a second movie and then just dive into whatever the next movie is without having to explain what got retconned.
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
So then when you get to Man of Steel 2 and Superman's fighting Brainiac and you're like, but what about the stuff that happened with Justice League? It's like, well, half of Justice League isn't canon anymore. It's been changed.
Yeah.
Right? Like, even though there are two versions of Justice League. And I think that's one of the other things is that I think Flashpoint will be used to explain why there is Justice League and Zack Snyder's Justice League, and that both will exist within continuity, but one is pre-Flashpoint and one is post-Flashpoint. So one would be New 52 because that's the post-Flashpoint universe, right? So yeah, I think that I think them talking about the fact that they've got a multiverse panel, the rumors about Flash being about Flashpoint, I think that DC is trying to gear everybody up for the idea that, hey, get super familiar with the fact that we're going to fix everything, that this is going to be a very public, very intentional retcon, and not like the Rise of Skywalker, where we just kind of ignored some stuff and pretended like other things did happen.
You have just had so much shade for Rise of Skywalker today. I love it so much. Like,
well, okay, so here's one of the pieces that you don't know, and that when I give you these comics to read, you'll understand. They did a comic book series called The Rise of Kylo Ren, in which there's a scene right after the moment with Luke where Ben pulls the hut down on the two of them, and Ben gets up and goes towards the temple, and the temple is struck by a massive bolt of lightning and explodes in flame. That's not how it happened in that first movie. That is not how it was explained in The Last Jedi. It does make Ben less culpable for the destruction of Luke's Jedi temple, so that he is more redeemable in Rise of Skywalker. But for some reason, they retconned it in the movie without talking about the fact that they retconned it, and then put the actual retcon in a comic book that nobody is going to read, other than like the nerdy Star Wars nerds, right? So I think that DC is going to do a very different approach, which is that they're going to be out on Front Street with their retcons and go, we're going to make all of this make sense. And we're going to keep everything that you guys like, and we're going to get rid of everything that you don't. On the one hand, neat. On the other hand, a terrible idea. I can't hear you, Amanda.
Oh, I was just saying, I'm sorry, there's people like outside, like somebody's TV's on, so now I like feel like I have to mute myself. Where I was just saying that it just seems like a terrible idea. Who's in charge of those decisions? Right? It would be fine if somebody that we trusted was in charge of making the decisions for what gets retcon versus not.
Here's the other part of that is very interesting. So a paper was literally published, like an actual peer-reviewed scientific paper,
nice,
regarding the veracity of how many people actually dislike The Last Jedi. And how much of that sentiment was actually Russian bots, and how much of it was actually veiled political manipulation. Because a lot of it was actually Russian bots. The majority of Star Wars fans actually love The Last Jedi, and Rian Johnson retweeted it today and was like, this actually matches my experience, like my real world experience of like so many people coming up to me and telling me that The Last Jedi is their favorite Star Wars. I'm putting words in his mouth right now, but yeah. like this is like sort of the reading between the lines. So many people say that's my favorite Star Wars. I love The Last Jedi. You did such a good job. It's such a good movie. As opposed to the online sentiment, which is that everyone hates The Last Jedi, and that's why Disney isn't making any more good Star Wars stuff because the fanboys got angry about The Last Jedi. So it's a whole thing, but that makes this type of approach, if that's what is happening with Flashpoint, it makes that very interesting, because it's a bad idea. Who's
making the decisions? I don't trust the people to be listening to the right people, to actually know what people like versus what they don't.
And then
it's like, why can't you just change the story and let people make their own retcon? People can do that.
And then on top of all of this, you've got the shakeups going on at DC.
Like general. All of Warner Brothers got fired, didn't they?
Yeah, a bunch of people got laid off. And then on top of that, the stuff that Ray Fisher has been saying about Joss Whedon, which wasn't a surprise, but the surprising part was the stuff that he said about Jeff Johns, who we all thought was the Kevin Feige of the DC universe. And it turns out that he might actually have some problematic views and opinions, and he may have handled some stuff less than ideally when it comes to the concerns that Ray Fisher had about the way that his character was being handled in Justice League. So it's been very obvious for a very long time that DC is a ship without a captain. We'll see what happens. Low expectations are the best place to be because then you can get pleasantly surprised by things like Shazam, which under different circumstances I think we would meet with is this really a great movie?
I know,
but because
right?
of the way that DC is, I'll go back to Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is a very competent superhero movie. There are some things that it does incredibly well that it should be praised for. In terms of a superhero plot, it is very much connect the dots, paint by numbers, fill in the blanks, right? Like you get to the third act and she fights a CG monster, right?
But that's what I wanted from a movie. Like you have to start sort of like with the normalcy, and then
for sure.
I hope that with Wonder Woman 84, they can move away from that and maybe do something interesting.
And
right?
I think that the success of Wonder Woman allows Patty Jenkins to a lot more leeway to do what she wants to do with the character. So I always have to like qualify what I say when I talk about Wonder Woman, because I do think that Patty Jenkins was able to work within the confines of the very male misogynistic viewpoints of Warner Brothers and make a movie that is very feminist and is very pro Wonder Woman as a character, and does that character justice, even if it is a paint by numbers like cookie cutter superhero movie. There are moments within it like No Man's Land that stand out and are
I love it so
head and
much,
shoulders above a lot of superhero moments. That said, the movie in general is a very like safe superhero movie, right? 1984 will be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what she does with a little bit more rope. That's a Wonder Woman pun because of the lasso.
We've still got so many of these. Can we just say, look at
we already talked about Shazam.
Yeah,
Aquaman. I think that we're gonna hear about Aquaman 2. I think that we'll get an announcement of that and maybe a date. And then the Batman, I think we're going to get our first full trailer. We kind of already talked about that as well. I think we'll get a full trailer, and I think we'll get a little bit of behind the scenes.
Nice.
And we'll get our first real good look about.
Do we have a release
what this
date
movie's about
for the Batman?
I think that there is, but I think that a lot of these movies that we're talking about that already have release dates, like the Batman, I think what we might get during all of this is new release dates, because I think that a lot of stuff is going to shift by 6 months. Like we've seen with the MCU, everything got shifted in bulk 6 months down the road, or not 6 months in general, but I think it was like 4 months. But like Shang-Chi got moved from the March slot into the May slot, right? So I think we'll see a lot of that sort of thing, like things getting shifted by 3 to 6 months with new release dates and that sort of thing. But I don't know. I mean, I think that that's the majority of stuff that I wanted to talk about, unless you have Batman stuff to talk about. But if I know you, I know that you don't care.
I don't. It's meh. Yeah.
He'll put on a bat costume and he'll be very scary to bad guys.
I am curious to see what Robert Pattinson does with it.
Yeah.
Because generally speaking, I don't actually have a problem with him as an actor. Because I think he's done, like, he chooses roles that are just, like, things that I wouldn't watch. Like, I didn't watch... Mm-hmm. He's done a lot of art house films that I have not watched, like The Lighthouse Keeper, or The Lighthouse, whatever.
Sure,
but
whatever.
It's, like, cool, he does his own. Hey, for Twilight fans, one of the biggest pieces of news was that Midnight Sun finally got released. So if you've ever been curious to see what Twilight is like from inside the mind of Edward Cullen, as I know many people have. I have not read it yet.
You're speaking directly
I am speaking
to someone who is the opposite of me.
I know, yeah, basically.
I could not care less.
It is yeah, it's, anyways, I can't, that poor Edward, or poor Robert Pattinson, I feel like he's trying very hard. He's trying very hard to not do stuff. But I do feel like they both, like him and Kristen Stewart have both done a decent job of doubling down on. The reason that they were in Twilight is because they both like indie art house stuff. And that's what Twilight was. It was a Catherine Hardwicke indie art house movie that became a global phenom, and they both hated it because that's not the type of art they want to make. So I can't fault them for that as like actors. It's like they did choose a movie that they would have both, like, knowing what they've chosen since, like, it makes sense that they would have said yes to that because they didn't know what it was at the time that they were saying yes to it. So they thought they were signing on for a movie.
I would be so curious to see what Twilight would look like now if they were to make the first movie now, having it already knowing what kind of a success it's going to be, right? Because like to your point, it's like it's an indie art house, like it's a weird like niche genre within a genre movie. They somehow became one of the biggest movies of all time. Like,
and I will say art house is probably not the right word for me to use, but like it's that type of indie where it was like a small studio and a small crew, like it was just a small budget movie that just like became this like insane thing. So I don't know.
I tried with Twilight, man. I tried, but nope. It's just not there for me.
It's not. It's very much of a time and a place and of a certain mentality. In the same way that I love Gossip Girl. Like, I only love Gossip Girl at certain points in time. I understand that it's trash garbage.
Crystal is going through Gossip Girl, and every once in a while, I'll walk into the room while she's watching it, and I'll be like, it takes no time to clock what is happening on that show.
Oh, no.
Because it's like, okay, I know that character, because I watched a lot of the first season with her. And so I know who all of like the main characters are from the first season. And so it'll be like, okay, I know who that is, and that is. I don't know her, I don't know him. And then like these characters will say like one or two lines. And I'm like, okay, so obviously that's the estranged mother of that person.
Yeah.
And that's the sister that she didn't know that she had. And that guy is her new boyfriend because everybody eventually sleeps with
everybody.
Ryan Reynolds, Blake Lively. On that show, it seems like it's sooner or later every guy has a dalliance with her.
I actually feel like it's more Blair that everybody, because Serena and Chuck never sleep together. And I do like, but it's the thing because Chuck Bass sleeps with everybody, so it's like I love
every time I
have
walk
to
in.
Say,
sorry, go ahead.
My biggest guilty pleasure as a feminist is that I really like Chuck Bass. Like, I understand how terrible that is. And
but there's a difference between liking a fictional character that is, it's the bad boy archetype, right? It's a trope. And there's a reason why that's appealing in fiction. But if you were presented with him in the real world, he would be deplorable. He would be reprehensible, right? You wouldn't even want to be in the same room with him. And knowing that intellectually, this is one of those hills that I had to get over in order to understand and appreciate the whole Raylo thing.
Right.
Is that like it is not actually harmful for women to admire a character like Kylo Ren, who is a fictional character who does not actually do anybody any harm. That's okay. It's okay to enjoy fiction in that way. Yeah. And guys need to be less protective and weird and guardy, and it just all of those things that I thought that I was doing that I thought was good stuff that is actually just a form of misogyny because it takes away autonomy from women. So
that's so interesting. And because one of the things that's really hard, I've never had a problem with it because I'm not exposed to it too much. I have a lot of really I have a lovely social circle, but like I try really hard to not have a problem with men objectifying fictional women because I do the exact same thing. The border that gets to, and I find it uncomfortable. The Adam Driver when people are too much about Adam Driver. I will say that John Oliver has a great bit.
Oh, it's so good.
With Adam Driver. Anyways.
He knows exactly what he's doing. He's created a formula to it, and the whole thing is about exploiting that part of his fan base.
Yeah. But there is, I will say that there was a really interesting thing a while ago, though, where you have to be careful because there is a gendered lens to that. Where you have to be careful where people saying that Justin Trudeau is hot is different than other political figures that are women that are like oppressed in different ways, being like...
Then, like, for example, if I were to objectify AOC... would be very problematic.
It's different because of the reasons, like, of the social, like, context of who they are. And, like, so, like, you have to just understand that kind of stuff. So, look, in that way... I'm gonna make a crazy analogy, and then we're gonna end this episode.
I love it.
It's not a crazy analogy. It's actually a very apt analogy, but it is no different than the fact that I cannot use the N-word, but a black person can use the N-word. Right? It's the same thing. It's in principle, it's the same thing. It's about where the power dynamic is in that, who is the person benefiting from that power dynamic, and who's the person that is the target of the oppression in that power dynamic. And the choice to take that power away from the person on the top and give it back to the person on the bottom, right? Yeah. So women objectifying men in that way is women taking that power away from men and giving it back to themselves, which they have every right to do because of the way that our society is structured. No different than the prevalent example of that word being used in rap is that group of people taking that word back that was used to oppress them and using it as a source of power, and in fact using it to create wealth and help them, right? Like so it's the same sort of thing. So if I am to say, like, look, I do think that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is a very beautiful woman.
She quite much is, yes.
Yeah, and I think that I can say that as an objective fact that she is very beautiful. But if I were to be like hubba hubba, I've crossed the line,
right? Or make weird videos, or even like borderline, like, you know how you can get those shirts that are just a bunch of Justin Trudeau's faces. I feel like there's a little bit there's just a little, it's a little different, and it has to do with, I feel like, also like the love of boy bands and girl bands just having a little bit of a different context. If it's like the fanaticism that's men versus women,
you're gonna reflect that, like that behavior is gonna be reflected in the language that you learned, right? And so I think for women in our generation, the language that they learned was cutting pictures out of magazines and making collages with them, right?
I so much
which is a very specific language. And that doesn't connect with me because I didn't do that, but it definitely connects for women our age, right? Because I think the equivalent to that, this is gonna sound gross, the equivalent to that for a guy in our generation is a freeze frame with the VHS tracking. If that makes any sense. I won't go any further than that. But like, I think those are the equivalents of like how women that are currently in their 30s managed those emotions when they were 13 versus how boys did it when they were 13, right?
And it manifests then in like how we just deal with pop culture and objectification. Objectification. Wow, that word
objectification.
Real hard for me to say. But yeah, as adults and how we consume pop culture. But you know, at the end of the day, Chuck Bass shipper videos, I tell you, they are.
Every time I walk in on Crystal watching Gossip Girl, and I say it that way because she should be ashamed. She knows it, and she would admit that. She knows it's bad, but she watches it.
At some points, I have to fast forward through some of the terrible, atrocious things that happened on that show because I literally can't. They're cringeworthy. I can't watch them again.
It doesn't matter how many episodes she's watched in the interim. No matter what, when I walk in on her watching that show, the episode always ends with Blair and Chuck having just broken up or just gotten back together.
Yep.
Or in the middle of doing something inappropriate regarding one another because of their current status with one another. Yes. Like, either they are not currently together because she's with some prince or some such nonsense, but she's definitely sleeping with him, or they are together, but he's not giving her the emotional support that she needs, so she's confiding in some other guy, or they've just broken up or gotten back together. Like, it is always, like... considering the show isn't specifically about the two of them, the show sure is about the two of them.
Unless you're me, because this is the thing. I always find exactly what I need in the and same way that I watched that Malik, that like 30-minute of just like there. That is where I got to that video, was from watching the Blair and Chuck breakdown of all 7 seasons of Gossip Girl.
The worst. The worst.
It's the best.
The worst.
Pretty much.
Josh Schwartz has an MO, and it's a little bit gross and creepy, and I don't like it anymore.
Yeah. No, but it's the same in all of his stuff. Yeah.
Having watched the OC, bits of Gossip Girl, and the first 3 seasons of Dynasty, it's like he has a very specific fetish for rich people and for the parents of his main characters who are romantically linked also being romantically linked.
Yeah, it's real weird. It's real weird.
It's so odd. If he did it once, I'd be like, whatever. But he has done it in all 3 of those, and that's weird. Yeah. It's weird. Yeah. It's so odd. It's a lot like Mark Guggenheim killing women and then moving on with stories. You have to look at it and at a certain point go, what's wrong with you that you keep coming back to this story? Like that you keep coming back to this trope and telling it in a new way. It's a little bit different in Dynasty. I should give him credit for that, but not different enough that it doesn't have all the same like red flags of like, these are weird contrivances to get these two people together, and like, and the writing's on the wall. Like from the first episode of Gossip Girl, you're like, okay, so it's Dan, right? Dan and
Serena.
Serena, their parents, have already done the dirty at least once, and maybe there's a love child that we don't know about yet, and B, they will get back together by the end of the 2nd season. And
are you? I mean, spoilers for Gossip Girl, but do you know that they do have a child together?
I think I did know that.
Gossip Girl? Okay. Yeah. Because it's true. It's why Serena and Dan break up for the 3rd time in the series, because they find out that they share a sibling. Yeah. And then
I think I was talking to I did walk in on an episode, and then I was talking to Crystal, and I was like, don't tell me that they share a sibling. And she was like, yes, they do. And I was like, yep, that sounds like Josh Schwartz. Yeah. Because in the OC he did something very similar where it was Lindsay, I think was her name, was the girl that Ryan started dating in season 2, the redhead. Did you watch the OC, right?
I did, but years.
She's only in the first half of season 2 because of this. So Ryan. They're kind of like they're kind of adversaries. They don't really get along, but then they end up partnered on something and fall in love and start dating or whatever. And then we find out that Lindsay is actually the illegitimate half sister of the mom of Seth's mom. Oh. Because Kirsten, I think it's Kirsten. Yeah. Kirsten. Because her dad slept with another woman.
Oh,
basically.
Because he's the same kind of archetype as the guy in Gossip Girl. They're the same show. I don't know if people have watched the OC and Gossip Girl. They are the same. Yeah, they're just different coasts and different the politics around those coasts, which I think is quite interesting. And I mean, the reason I love Gossip Girl is because I love New York City. I mean, also I love Gossip Girl, but it's just like one of the things.
I don't know how we've ended up talking about Gossip Girl for this long. This is one of our longest episodes ever, particularly when you add the uncut. Because
let's be done.
We should be done. We should talk about Josh Schwartz at a later date.
Should we?
We'll put a button in this conversation. It will come up. Wow.
This is so much for my half-hour episode. I really did start this being like, Mike, can we only podcast for a half hour? I'm tired and cranky and hot.
I am all of those things as well, but we did it. We talked about all this stuff. Awesome. Well, thanks for listening. And we'll catch you on the next episode. I haven't done it yet, but I will do the pre-recorded thing before I edit this episode. So
easy peasy.
So that's it.
Great.
Thanks for listening. We'll catch you guys on the next one.
Stay safe, everyone. Wash your hands and be kind to one another.
Follow the Thunderquack Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook by searching the Thunderquack Podcast. You can support us in 3 ways. First, by heading to the podcast service of your choice and leaving a rating and review. Second, by going to store.thunderquack.com to pick up some merch from your favorite podcasts. And last but not least, by heading to patreon.com/thunderquack to kick in with your monthly pledge of support and get cool rewards like early access, ad-free episodes, and extended episodes. The Thunderquack Podcast is the official podcast of thunderquack.com. Head to thunderquack.com to discover more great podcasts.